Hi everyone, this video is mostly for my GCSE Computer Science students who are following the NAMELAND Python design and coding tutorial. And in this video we're going to be covering the design specification. And I've already started writing one. In fact, I've done a more complete one here, but here's my sort of template that you could use. And the design specification is no more complicated than just a list of the things your program should do. Now, it's a good idea if you can also include a column for justification. By the way, I do recommend doing it as a table like this. I recommend doing it as a table because ultimately when you've finished doing your programming, you can then easily add another column. And in that column, you can say whether or not that specification point was met. You can do your evaluation like that. So it makes it really easy for you. Now, the design specification can be written by reading through the scenario, and also hopefully you've already analysed the problem, so you should really understand what the program's going to do. So you need to now just formalise that by just writing a list of criteria. Now, each time you write one of these points, you need to see if you can make it very sort of factual, and we call that objective rather than subjective. So for example, avoid saying something like there should be an easy way to leave the program. It would be much better to say the program will have a menu, there will be a quit option on the menu, and that's like very objective, factual. Okay, so it's really quite easy to do that. By the way, if you want a little bit more support on that, if you have a look at this, there's this presentation here, and if you go to design specification and you can just expand this, then there's a little bit more of an explanation on the difference between subjective and objective criteria. Okay, so let's have a quick go at this. So basically you should just be able to read the scenario and then just identify a number of different points and try to make them small points. Try to keep each thing as a single thing. Because what I mean is, for example, don't say that there should be an option to sort and search and put that as one specification point, because maybe you will ultimately only be able to do the sorting and not the searching, and then it's difficult to say whether you've met that point or not. So it'd be much better to say, should have a sort function, should have a search function as two separate points. So you need a program to store a database of names. So the program will load names from a text file into a data structure. That seems okay. It's a specification point. It's factual. And the justification, you don't have to have the justification, but I like it, having it there. The program will store a database and load names from a text file. Okay, so that's my justification. It should be possible to have a search, and it should be possible to search and sort these names. So you might, as one specification point, there should be a search feature, there should be a sorting feature. Now this thing about names first and last names, you might want to say that the names, like some for one person might be like John Smith, another person might just be James. So you might like to, in your specification point, just to say that all the names will be stored in a single field, if that makes sense. So that might be a specification point that you want. Okay, what else? Basic user interface. I mean, that could be a specification point, but if you said a basic user interface, one person's idea of a basic user interface might not be the same as another, so that becomes more subjective. So if you want to make that objective, basic user interface might be like a text-based menu, or with the numbered options, or whatever you want to say. Okay. Given a list of names in a text file, well, we've already mentioned about that. Program should output a friendly message before closing. So one of your specification points might be, there will be a quit option. On choosing the quit option, separate point. If you're on choosing the quit option, the program will output thanks user NAMELAND and then close, or whatever you want. Okay. Now, I do recommend, if you're one of my students, to have a go at writing this design specification yourselves without cheating. So probably best to pause the video now, but if you want, I'm going to show you what I came up with. And so here we go. The program will load names. Well, that's the same as before. The program will use a data structure with a single column or field to store the name. So I'm not going to have like a column or a field for first name and a column and field for second name, because we're not always going to be given the first name or last name, and sometimes we won't even know because they're unusual names whether it's first or last name. So yeah, so that's my specification point. The program will have a name search feature. Well, that was mentioned there. Search feature will be case insensitive. Now, nowhere does it mention that, but I've decided that as a specification point, because if you just say it'll have a name search feature, later on when you actually do the coding, you're going to think, how am I going to do the search, or what sort of search? Not so much how, but what sort of search. So it'd be a good idea if now you decide what sort of search, because then you can then plan for writing the code for that type of search. If all you say at the moment is just there will be a search, then you don't really know what you should be researching next, what sort of Python programming technique you should be using. So do commit yourself to a type of search. In this case, it's a case insensitive search. And I've also said the search feature will return all possible matches. So for example, if I were to type just ED, it would return Edward because that's like part of a string, or even Mildred because that's ED, or Teddy because ED there. Now, it doesn't say that that's the type of search. And once again, I've decided that that is what my program should do. So that is in my specification. And if you don't include that in your specification, you're really going to be, you won't have a clue as to how you're going to implement it, because you don't really know what sort of search you're doing. The program will have a name sort feature. Okay, so we've been told it should have sort. And now I give more detail in a detailed specification point. It's objective, so not subjective. The sort feature will arrange names in ascending order. Once again, that's not detailed, but that's what or not detailed in the scenario. That's what I've decided. The program will be console based. I said that because basic user interface, so basic text based. The program will have a text based menu. Okay, that was the limited technology. And the program should output thanks for using NAMELAND before ending. Okay, so that's that last bit. Now, it's really going to be easy later on, after writing the code, or even during writing the code, to have this table extended to have another column here. So have 4 columns, and then have a column which says whether or not this point was met. So that could be part of my evaluation. So if you're doing a GCSE programming project, you're going to have to write an evaluation. What could be easier than just copying your original design specification table, adding a column, and saying yes, no, or partly, and maybe add a little bit more detail as well. Okay, so that's what you need to do for, let's go down to it, write a design specification. Do have a go at writing your own design specification. Of course, if you've now watched the full video and you've seen this, you might feel that you want to use some of this, but do try to write it yourself and then maybe compare back. Okay, that's it for the video.